Activist Radio is on the air. You've tuned into the Mark Harrington Show, sponsored by Created Equal. Mark is training a new generation of leaders to take on the culture of death and win.
You don't like abortion, don't have one.
The only thing that can be said to be objective truth is that there is no objective truth.
It does come out in one piece. It comes out in one piece.
I would argue that we certainly are not all created equal.
And now, here's Mark.
That's right. You're a radio activist coming to you live here from Created Equal Studios here in Columbus, Ohio. And I want to apologize for some technical difficulties. We're still working out some of the bugs when it comes to this program that we're live streaming over all these media platforms. But you can count on us every Thursday at 1 p.m., hopefully. Every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time here on Facebook, on Created Equal's Facebook page, and currently streaming live on my own personal page, as well as other social media platforms that we're going to be bringing online over time. So we appreciate you bearing with us. And thank goodness we've got the program launched here for the day. I think you're going to enjoy today's program. We're going to go over some important things that are happening in the country as it relates to the First Amendment and free speech, free expression, and college campuses and outreach and that kind of thing. As you know, over the last several weeks, if you've been following us here on the Mark Harrington Show, you're a radio activist. We've been sharing with you some of the things that have been happening around the country as it relates to the violence and vandalism, the attacks that we, Created Equal, have been, unfortunately, have had happen to us recently on campus and elsewhere. And just talking about this spike, this trend, this increase of vandalism, of attacks, violence, intimidation, bullying, censoring that's happening all across the country, and that's increased ever since the election of Donald Trump. We've seen an increase in these kinds of things, and it doesn't seem like it's dissipating a whole lot. And so today what I wanted to do is talk about that, those issues of the campuses. And the question I have is, are college campuses schools, or have they become war zones? And in many cases, and we're going to be talking about one in particular at the University of California at Berkeley, in many ways it's become a war zone, where leftist thugs have virtually taken over the campus there in Berkeley. Violent protests, vandalism. There's been the burning of buildings, such things like that. And we're going to talk about that in a minute here on the Mark Harrington Show. And I want to basically break it up into two things here, and that is there are two ways that leftists are destroying America, specifically our freedom of expression, the First Amendment. Our fundamental freedom of speech is being destroyed by the left. And I want to talk about those. And there's really two ways in which that's happening. The first is what I'm going to call mob rule. Mob rule. That's kind of what's happening at Berkeley, in Berkeley, California, where just, roaming bands of jackbooted thugs wielding clubs and Molotov cocktails and all kinds of other things have began violent protests at the beginning of the when Donald Trump was elected, and even through today, when Ann Coulter was her presentation, her speech at Berkeley was canceled for today. So we want to talk about that. What is mob rule? I mean, and if you allow these people to do what they're doing, aren't you encouraging more of it? And if you are, where do we go from here? I mean, what's left of free speech if a violent mob just threatens violence and that shuts down someone's free speech? That's what we're going to talk about. And also, we're going to talk about the other way leftists destroy America, or at least attempt to, and it's specifically our freedom of speech, which is using intimidation and bullying tactics. So those are the two things we're going to cover today. The first thing I just wanted to bring up, I know that this has been big news. If you're following this on online, that is that the commentator Ann Coulter was invited to speak at Berkeley University. That is the University of California at Berkeley. And for today, that is the 27th of April, she was supposed to be speaking at Berkeley at the invitation of the college Republicans. And when it got close to the speech, the university said that they could no longer guarantee her safety and the safety of the students and faculty at Berkeley, so they canceled the event. After protest and threat of lawsuit, the university backtracked on that and offered an alternative date of May 2nd to Miss Coulter. Now, what was wrong with that? Of course, this happens all the time, folks. I mean, it happens with us, where universities won't come out and overtly say, well, we're not going to allow you to speak here, or you don't have the First Amendment right to speak here or do this type of outreach here. They never say that. What they do is they'll say, oh, of course we'll protect your free speech, but you got to do it on this time and on this date and and in this location. And the time and date usually don't match with the general activities of the college. And the location tends to be out of the mainstream, out of the traffic flow or what have you. And that's what happened with Ann Coulter, apparently. She said this May 2nd date, this alternative date, was a day in which Berkeley didn't even have classes. So she turned down that alternative. And as far as I know, and it's 3 o'clock here Eastern time or so, we understand that Miss Coulter is still planning to go to Berkeley and visit the campus. Whether she's going to speak or not, we don't know. It's unlikely at this case, at this point. And it looks like the mob at Berkeley has succeeded in keeping Ann Coulter from speaking by intimidating the university into canceling the event. But this hasn't happened in a vacuum. Ever since the election of Donald Trump, we've seen protests at Berkeley and across the country, of course. Those protests have been sometimes violent, and that's been happening, as well as just recently in March, Milo Yiannopoulos tried to speak at the campus. And, of course, Milo's a kind of a conservative provocateur. And, by the way, I'm not condoning the activities of Miss Coulter or Milo or anybody else, David Horowitz. They have their own way of presenting things. But the bottom line is they should have the right to speak. They should have the right to be heard. And the campus should be a place where there's a marketplace of ideas. So whether you like what they say or not is irrelevant. The bottom line is they should have the right to speak. And one thing that's very interesting in the work that I've been doing over the last several years is that I find myself defending my right to defend the unborn as often as I defend the unborn, if you know what I'm saying. I spend almost maybe even half or at least a third of my time defending our rights to defend the unborn, the First Amendment, that is. So I spend a whole lot of time battling with this kind of a problem, typically with administrators on college campuses, but it happens on high school campuses. It happens with city government, state government, and federal government. So I find myself spending a lot of time defending the right to speak on behalf of the unborn. But anyway, this after the election of Donald Trump and then this canceled speech by Milo, Ann Coulter was invited to speak on today, April 27th, and of course was canceled. Of course, Berkeley has a background here, and there's a lot of history with University of California, Berkeley, as it relates to free speech. Many attribute Berkeley with the launching of the so-called free speech movement, the free speech movement, which was begun in the 1960s in response to the Vietnam War, where anti-war protesters around the country, a lot of them on college campuses, began to speak out. Many of those were violent protests. But in the fall of 1964, there was a movement on the campus of Berkeley to speak out against the war and the administration. In a certain case, an individual was arrested, and that led to a 36-hour speaking, a time of students coming to the Sproul Plaza, which is right in front of Sproul Hall, kind of the center point of the campus, the public square, if you will. And for 36 hours, they spoke against the administration and against the war in Vietnam. And a lot of people attribute this to the launch of the free speech movement. It led to a young man by the name of Mario Savio, who will forever be known as the man who stood on the top of the police car and began speaking. And that led to this 36-hour protest in Sproul Plaza. And, of course, if you want to go ahead and show that photo of Mario on top of the car, that's Mario right there, Mario Savio. By the way, he's passed away most recently. But a lot of people give him credit for launching the free speech movement, so to speak. We also, when I was with the Center for Bioethical Reform with the Genocide Awareness Project, took our display to the University of California, Berkeley. And you can show that photo, if you will. That's a picture right there of our display at Sproul Plaza at the University of California, Berkeley. And you can tell there are protesters around that display. We're showing pictures of aborted baby photos, images of abortion victims. But you can tell that the students were peaceful. They were law-abiding. There was no violence, no vandalism, nothing. But a lot has changed since that time. That was in 2009 when I visited Berkeley and set up this large photo exhibit showing the connection between abortion and genocide. Lots has changed since then at the University of California at Berkeley, starting with the election of Donald Trump, then with Milo, now with Ann Coulter and David Horowitz. If you would show the poster that's been circulated throughout the college there at Berkeley. This is a poster that's been plastered all over the campus, and this is the opposition organization, which they're calling themselves Refuse Fascism. And this is the flyer that's been distributed recently around the campus, alerting the students to the notion that Ann Coulter and David Horowitz are going to be speaking at the campus. Apparently they succeeded in preventing David Horowitz from speaking there. But April 27th is the date to which Ann Coulter was scheduled to speak there. But if you read what I want to do, and I'm just going to read this bottom portion for you to give you a picture of what this opposition looks like at the University of California, Berkeley. And this isn't, this is kind of emblematic of some of the places around the country where they call conservative speakers or writers fascists. I mean, we're hearing that all the time. Fascists. Once someone's identified as a fascist, I mean, it pretty much shuts down anybody's opportunity to speak. But let me read what they wrote here. And I'm quoting from the bottom part of this flyer. It says, "What we're dealing with is not just another really repressive and reactionary Republican administration, not principally a vile narcissist." I guess they're calling Donald Trump a vile narcissist, with a Twitter feed and with a bunch of racist billionaires surrounding him, but a regime that has brought together what has been developing. That is, fascist movements, white supremacists, KKK, militia, and Tea Party movements that overlap with a huge Christian fascist movement. So, I mean, think about that. How many times they used fascist in that short paragraph, and I didn't even read the whole thing. But they're trying to lump all the conservative organizations together, and these are all very extreme groups. I mean, white supremacists, KKK, militia, Tea Party, and Christian fascist movement. The thing that strikes me here, of course, is that they're the ones who are fascist, actually. And I really don't tend to want to use that word very often because I don't want to get involved in hyperbole. I don't want to use it if it's not appropriate. But if you look at the definition from Merriam-Webster of fascist or fascism, if you look at that definition, I think it fits what these thugs at the University of California, Berkeley are, not Ann Coulter or David Horowitz. or Milo. I think this definition fits those forces at Berkeley and elsewhere around the country are trying to shut down any kind of conservative speech or any Republican speech, or so to speak, or Christian speech. And if you read the definition, I'll read it for you right there on the page. It says this: fascism is this, a tendency towards or actual exercise of a strong autocratic or dictatorial control. Now, my question is this: who's being autocratic and dictatorial? And who's trying to control whom here? It's the leftists. It's the so-called progressives, right? It's these anti-Trump folks, if you want to call them that, on the college campus at Berkeley. They're the ones that are being autocratic. They're the ones that are being dictatorial. They're the ones forcing the shutdown of speech on a college campus. It's not the Christian conservatives that are doing that. It's not Ann Coulter. She's for free speech. I'm for free speech. In fact, I would defend anyone's right to speak and say virtually anything they like because I know it goes both ways. I know if I defend the left's right, or for that matter, an abortion advocate's right to speak, then I'm hoping that we will deal with people rightly and people will also defend my right to speech. So it goes both ways. And there is only, folks, there's only one First Amendment. There's not two. There's only one First Amendment. It applies to right and left and in between and everybody in the total, in the paradigm there, in the continuum. It's everybody. The right to speech applies to everyone along the total political spectrum. There's not two First Amendments, one for them and one for us. But unfortunately, the administration at the University of California, Berkeley, have apparently caved to this mob rule. And that is, the threat of violence is now shutting down free speech on their campus. And they allowed it to happen when they first canceled David Horowitz and now Milo and now Ann Coulter. They basically given the leftists what they want. And that is the silencing of these voices out there who have the right to speak on these campuses. And so it's just going to encourage more of this kind of thing, this kind of lawlessness, the willingness to be unlawful and not abide by the laws of the country. And that's unfortunately what we're going to see more of unless we begin to see the government, the rightful government there, starting with the University of California, Berkeley, the city of Berkeley, and then the state of California, and dare I say the federal government, basically start cracking down on this kind of violent protest. There's no First Amendment right to violent protest. There's a First Amendment right to peaceful protest, but not violent protest. And so my hope is that the University of California, Berkeley Police Department, along with the administration, maybe the city of Berkeley and the state of California, will say enough is enough. We're not going to put up with this anymore. And it's interesting, as I thought about this, there is precedent for this, by the way. Ronald Reagan, who was a governor of California during the 1960s, during the anti-war protests at Berkeley and other colleges in the state of California, had to deal with some of these types of violent protests. And it's interesting the difference, what 50 years will do, and how a Ronald Reagan dealt with violent protests compared to how the administration of the University of California, Berkeley are dealing with violent protests. The administration at Berkeley are coddling these protesters, these violent protesters, this mob rule, if you will, and hoping that they don't get out of control. They don't want to intervene. They keep the police at a distance. They allow them to destroy property and burn things and throw Molotov cocktails and rocks and all that kind of thing and hurt people and shut down free speech. They've been allowing that, whereas 50 years ago, Ronald Reagan didn't allow that. And what I'd like to do now is I'm going to play a clip. Now, this is Ronald Reagan in a press conference when he was dealing with some of the protests at Berkeley, and these were violent protesters. And you'll see the difference of what he chose to do compared to what the governor of California has chosen not to do, and what the administration at UC Berkeley has also chosen not to do. Go ahead and play that clip.
128 people are admitted to local hospitals. Reagan declares a state of emergency and sends in the National Guard.
Those people told you for days in advance that if the university sought to go ahead with that construction, they were going to physically destroy the university. Now, why did you
negotiate many times?
Negotiate? What is to negotiate? What is?
Well, the university is a public institution.
That's right. But the university,
its own community, and for the community of Berkeley that live around it.
All of it began the first time some of you who know better and are old enough to know better let young people think that they had the right to choose the laws they would obey as long as they were doing it in the name of social protest.
Well, there you go. Now, there's a real governor for you. Of course, Ronald Reagan went on to be the president of the United States 2 terms, and, of course, one of the greatest presidents our country has ever had. That's what it takes. Unfortunately, the governor of California, Jerry Brown, is unwilling to intervene. This is way beyond the ability of the Berkeley Police Department to handle at this point. The administration has bungled this thing. They basically encouraged this kind of violent activity. And now I can only expect that it's going to get worse because they're being encouraged to do this. I think it's time, if not, probably at this point, it's time for President Trump to federalize the California National Guard and order them to go in and stop this kind of violent protest, allow free speech to be presented on the campus of the University of California, Berkeley. I don't know if that'll happen, or at least the Attorney General of the United States, Jeff Sessions, may need to get involved here, because we continue to see the eroding of free speech. And in many respects, free speech is so fundamental to America and to our democracy that this left unchecked could really lead to a decay, if not the destroying of the country altogether. So we don't know what's happening there right now as we speak. Ann Coulter has, her presentation has been canceled there. But like I say, this is happening all across the country on college campuses, this kind of mob rule where the administrators and the adults aren't standing up to the students and telling them they can't do this stuff. And if they do, they're going to be put in jail. So it's been encouraging that kind of thing around the country. But there's been something else going on. The 2 ways that the left is threatening the country, or destroying America, or threatening the ability for us to speak freely. The 2 ways is, the first is this mob rule kind of activity, this violent threats, these violent attacks, protests, if you will. And the second is just intimidation and bullying generally. We're also seeing that from administrators, from government officials. You go down from professors and the whole lot of them. If you don't like the speech, what you do is intimidate people. You threaten them and you bully them. You call them racist. You call them homophobes. You call them anti-immigrants or anti-immigration or xenophobic or so on and so forth. Racist, right? Misogynist, sexist, whatever. And by labeling these, labeling people who speak their mind these things, they're often prevented from actually being able to access any kind of public forum. We've seen this routinely, unfortunately, on the high school campuses. Now, the difference between a high school and a college is we don't have the public access that we do at a college campus because the public funding aspect. Public colleges are funded by state tax dollars. Therefore, they generally are more accessible to folks like ourselves. But high school campuses are different. You can't go onto the campus of a high school without permission because that'd be trespassing. But we do have access to the public sidewalk. And we have routinely been going to high school campuses for, the last 6, 7, 8 years. Almost once a week at least. And we go when the schools are being left out, or when the students are being let out, or in the morning when they arrive. and the buses are arriving, and we get this flood of students who come out and generally discuss the issue of abortion in a civilized manner. What we found is it's not the students that misbehave. It's often the administrators, or in particular, the principal. And we had that happen just a couple of months ago at a school in Fort Wayne, Indiana, where Principal Mabel came out and basically told our young people, our activists, that they couldn't be on the public sidewalk. He actually picked up the signs and threw them into the street, and said that he was, protecting his children. Thankfully, through a threat of lawsuit to the school district, our activists have now returned to that school, that high school in Fort Wayne, and we've had a victory there. But it didn't come without threatening to go to court. Well, just this week, there was an event that took place down in Pennsylvania, close here to Ohio, in a school district in which a 16-year-old activist, pro-life activist, and his sister, I just guess it was the two of them, who went out to a local school by the name of STEM Academy. Apparently it's a science academy, private school, more than likely, that teaches primarily science. They went out to the public sidewalk using abortion victim photography. And many of the abortion victim photos are the ones we use, are actually the ones we provided to this organization. These are the abortion victim photos that we use on our signs. So they went out to this high school, STEM Academy, on Friday last week, April 21st, and went out to the public sidewalk, which is their right to do so. It's a public sidewalk, public access in front of a high school, peacefully, prayerfully, trying to reach out to the students as they left for the day. And so what I want to do, I'm going to play a clip, and this is obviously very edited. We took most of the comments from this principal and condensed them into a short video. And I think you'll understand, here's the type of thing that pro-life activists are routinely facing across the country, whether they go to a college campus, whether they go to a public sidewalk in front of a high school, whether they go to the public square in the downtown area. This is the kind of intimidation and bullying and harassment and the threats that our young people and many across the country are facing as they take out these signs simply to reach out to students who might be considering abortion. So let's go ahead and play that clip. Again, this is from STEM Academy, a principal coming out and harassing and threatening a 16-year-old pro-life activist.
It's a public sidewalk, so.
Yes, this is a public sidewalk, but you're actually on school property at this point. So you need to walk on the sidewalk, or I can call the police or something.
I mean, that's fine. If you want to call the police,
I will more than happily do that.
That's fine.
I can also stand there. Hey, Tim, how you doing? You can go to hell where they are, too. No, I wish to protect my students from unsightly things that they don't need to see.
Sir,
my students, we do not have a single pregnancy in my school. I've been here for 5 years. Nobody's been pregnant. There's not been a single abortion. And you want to call me a liar?
Go ahead and stop it there.
A
couple of things. First of all, he says, he calls them my students. I understand that he considers them his students. He goes on to say that they're his children. I wonder what their parents think about that. I mean, I don't think the principals really, they are his children. But and then he tells the 16-year-old activist to go to hell where the babies are. I don't know. This guy, he doesn't get it. I mean, this is the kind of people that we have in our high schools, running our high schools. This principal running a science academy, telling a 16-year-old activist that he needs to go to hell where the babies are. Go ahead and continue on.
You can go get a freaking life. They're not children. They're cells.
They're cells.
Go home.
Cells.
They are cells. You're at a science-based school. Those are cells. Listen here, son. All right? I'm as gay as the day is long.
Here comes the patronization.
I don't give a fuck what you think Jesus tells me and what I should and should not be doing. I'm not their teacher. I'm their assistant principal.
Okay, the assistant principal wants to keep...
Shut your mouth and don't talk to my students. You do not have permission to speak and engage. No, you do not. You are harassing public school students, and I will call the police if you don't shut up. No, you're not. You're harassing people. Go to Planned Parenthood. Go to a doctor's office.
I do go to Planned Parenthood.
This isn't the time or the place for you to harass innocent school children who have nothing to do with your twisted and perverted agenda.
Your teacher wishes to
I am not their teacher.
Your principal.
And if you do not stop talking to my students, then don't talk to my students. Do you not understand when I say do not talk to my students? Do not. No, you do not. No, you do not. Now when you're on public property,
it's public property,
no, it's not. That's not how it works. It's called a school. Look into your laws.
I'm 16
Stop
and you're
harassing
yelling at
my
me.
children.
60. I mean, it would be comical if it weren't so tragic. This video was put together by our good friends at Abolish Human Abortion. They shot the video and put it on their YouTube page. A couple of things I want to go over real quick there are some of the content. He talks about the babies being cells, just cells. Well, the truth of the matter is we're all cells, a combination of cells, aren't we? However, we are organized in a human being. Therefore, we're different than, say, just a skin cell or some kind of body cell. We're actually human beings. We're comprised of DNA that makes us unique, whole, and alive. So he's the principal of a science academy, but he hasn't even got that one right, that science proves, and the science of embryology proves that human life begins at fertilization. It was very patronizing to the student as well. I mean, he acted like the child, not the 16-year-old. And he said that there's been no one in the last 5 years that's gotten pregnant at his high school. Now, how would he know that, first of all? If a woman gets pregnant at his high school, they don't go around telling everybody. Now, as far as he knows, probably there hasn't been a teen pregnancy in which the young lady has carried the baby to term, because he probably would be aware of that, obviously, because she'd have a baby bump and then deliver and all that good stuff. But isn't it possible? Isn't it possible? The reason why he doesn't know that anyone's been pregnant, or he says that no one's had an abortion, is because they have gotten pregnant and they have had an abortion. I mean, how's he going to know whether they had an abortion or not? He's not going to, because nobody goes out and telegraphs that and tells everybody about it. They do it in secret. So the idea that he is the principal of a high school, 16, 17, 18-year-old young people, and none of them are getting pregnant, is just, ignorant to begin with. And then he mentioned that we shouldn't be talking to his innocent children. Now, a 16-year-old to me is not a child anymore. I don't think a 17-year-old is a child. I don't believe an 18-year-old's a child. They're an adolescent. They're a teenager, a young adult, but they're not children. And the idea that this principal has been given the authority, the right, the responsibility to protect these young people's eyes and ears from subject matter that might be difficult for them to deal with, that's not his role. That's not his role. These young people who aren't really children are probably facing a whole lot more when they go to the supermarket and they walk through the checkout line and they look at the magazines along there than they are when they go and leave their high school campus after classes. So here's what's happening. As I said before, the two ways that the left are destroying America and the First Amendment. The first is by mob rule. We're seeing that in Berkeley. Hopefully the administration there at the University of California, Berkeley, will do something about it, or the governor, or for that matter, hopefully the Attorney General or President Trump will put down those violent protests there. That's number one. Mob rule. Caving to mob rule only encourages it. And then administrators across the country, principals and so forth, those put in authority in government, use intimidation tactics like bullying, name calling, ad hominem attacks, and this kind of thing to shut down speech. You just saw that at this high school in Pennsylvania. But here's the deal. We can fight back. We can fight back. And the way to fight back is don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid. Don't fear this kind of thing. We are going to continue to press forward into the public square using the First Amendment to our advantage to press for the rights of preborn children. And folks, here's what you can do to help us out. Here's your action point for the day. Here's your marching orders for today. And that is, you can get out a pencil right now and write down this phone number. We want you to pick up the phone and call President Colleen Craney. She's the superintendent or principal for this Downingtown area school district. President Colleen Craney, the number is on the screen right now. President Colleen Craney, the Downingtown area school district. Right there, write that down, write down that phone number, call her, and demand that the school district apologize to this 16-year-old pro-life activist who is exercising his First Amendment rights on a public sidewalk. That's what we want. Be kind, be civil, be winsome, but call that number on the screen, President Colleen Craney, and demand that she apologize, or demand that the principal apologize for his behavior in regards to this young 16-year-old pro-life activist, his attempts to intimidate and shut down the speech that he has the right to express. Tune in next time. We'll be here 1 p.m. every Thursday Eastern Time on the Mark Harrington Show. And you can follow us on Facebook at createdequal.org. You can go to our website at createdequal.org or here on this Facebook page and other media platforms. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, America, to bless God.
You've been listening to Mark Harrington, your radio activist. For more information on how to become a witness against the evil plague in America, call Created Equal at 614-269-7808, 614-269-7808, or go online to createdequal.net, createdequal.net. Be sure to tune to the Mark Harrington Show next time for your marching orders in the culture war.